Hi friends, today let us see how one can attain salvation or moksha in Hinduism. First of all, let us understand why this part is very crucial in any human's life, attaining salvation or moksha. Because, see, in any religion wherein people believe in God, there are scriptures that specifically mention, like, even after we die, the body goes to the grave, but the soul will remain after our death. So, this salvation or moksha has to do everything with the soul as to what happens to the soul after we die, because the soul is our own, it has all the reflections of us. It is very crucial to know what happens to it. That is the reason every religion you take, either Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, everything, even Buddhism actually, they all talk about the soul which lives even after this body dies. So now we have to see how the soul will get moksha or attain salvation. This is the reason it becomes very critical. So now let us understand, like, how one can attain salvation or moksha as per Hinduism. Before this, in case you have not seen the earlier video which conclusively proves that there is no supreme god, specific supreme god in Hinduism, it is conclusively proved in my previous video. Please check that. Now we are building on that. So now, given that there is no one supreme god in Hinduism, we have to see the methodology of attaining salvation as per both Vishnu and Shiva, which is considered to be the supreme gods in Hinduism. So here in the methodology of Vishnu is described in Bhagavad Gita, how one can attain salvation. Similarly, Shiva Purana is having the methodology as per Shiva. So let us go one by one. Let us start with Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8 specifically deals with moksha or attaining salvation or attaining the supreme. See, this is the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Like, as I showed you the other day, this scripture is a genuine rendition from the Sanskrit version by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder of ISKCON. Here you can see His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Okay, the links are there in the description box, which you can freely download. This is the person. All right, so this is the translation by this person. So now chapter 8 completely deals with attaining the supreme. So let us understand what it says. What is the methodology? See, here Arjuna inquired to Krishna, who is avatar of Vishnu, as, "O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me." He wanted to know what is Brahman, how to attain it, and hence show me the path. And he also put a couple of other questions. And he is continuing with his question: who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana, referring to Krishna? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of their death? All right. Now, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is Vishnu, he is saying the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and this eternal nature, which never dies, is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. Then he is trying to explain here what is the demigods. Okay, and in my previous video we have again come to a conclusion as to what the demigods are. Please check it out. Okay, here again Vishnu is continuing: and whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So when a person is dying, if he is remembering him, Krishna or Vishnu, that is when he would attain Vishnu. And then he is continuing: whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, referring to Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. So here Vishnu is telling, like, when a person is dying, whatever he remembers, the last remembrance of the dying person, that is where the person will reach. That is what is being taught here. So when a person is dying, he could just think about anything, not necessarily Krishna, not necessarily Shiva, or whatever. It could even be some basic thing, like he's in deep pain and he's calling a doctor or whatever, we don't know. But here he's telling whatever the person remembers, which is the his last remembrance, that is where he goes after dying. So that is the reason Krishna is again continuing and telling to Arjuna, therefore you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out our prescribed duty of fighting. With our activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So here essence is always remembering Krishna. That is the whole focus. And then he who meditates on me, Krishna is telling, as the supreme personality of Godhead, in his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, referring to Arjuna, is sure to reach me. So again, here the whole focus is completely on remembering Krishna, always being in devotion to him, meditating on him, and constantly engaged in remembering Krishna and an undeviated path. And here again it is talking about like he is the oldest controller and other things. Okay, one who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain. So all the places you are seeing, the person should always be remembering Krishna. All right. And then it continues, persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order. What is renounced order? Renounced order means like being detached, renouncing everything. We are not interested in eating this, drinking this, not interested in the family relationships. That is called as the renounced order. That is the reason all the saints, they are considered to be people of the renounced order in Hinduism. So all those people who are first qualification learned in Vedas, they should be knowing Vedas, who utter Omkara, the Om syllable, and who are great sages in the renounced order. Okay, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. What is celibacy? Brahmacharya, not engaging in marriage and the activities related. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So here he is putting the criteria how one can attain Brahman, which is attaining Vishnu, which is the ultimate moksha status or the salvation. So the person should be learned in Vedas, they should be uttering Omkara, they should be great sages in the renounced order. So they should give up all desires, all satisfaction, all kind of a what do you call what all their desires, everything should be given up. And typically desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. So being bachelor or practicing celibacy is essential. So now Krishna goes on like how it is achieved. See, the yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagement. See, what is senses? The eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, and the body. So person should not have any of the sensual desires. Like tongue, what is the desire of the tongue? To eat something tasty. Nose, to sense or smell something which is very good. So all these things, the person should be detached. And even as you saw, even they should practice celibacy, so they are even detached from the family or from marrying. So they are practicing celibacy, plus they are also detached from their sensual organs, which is like the tongue, nose, everything, and closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head, one establishes himself in yoga. So basically here how a person can put himself in a yogic situation is by detachment from everything and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. This basically is meditation. So detachment plus meditation, that is how a person establishes himself in the yogic situation. Now, after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of supreme personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So here he is telling, like, one person having detached from all the sensual desires and everything, practicing celibacy, he has to utter Omkar, okay, and then thinking about Krishna. If he quits his body, then it is telling he will not attain Vishnu Lok, but here it is telling spiritual planets. Why? We will come to know very shortly. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pratha, again referring to Arjuna, because of his constant engagement in the devotional service. See, after, and why is it critical to attain moksha, salvation, or Vishnu Lok rather than somewhere else? Is after attaining me, the great souls who are in yogis in devotion never return to this temporal world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. Here he is telling people who are practicing this, who are in yogic situation by following the detachment, by following celibacy and uttering Omkara, constantly thinking about Vishnu, they quit their body or they die. That is when they reach Vishnu Lok or Brahman, which is the supreme position or the highest perfection. That is why it is required, because they will not again come back to this temporal world, because this is full of miseries. So this is the whole purpose why we have to always think about salvation, wherein we are not returning to this material world. This is what the teaching here is. And then he is continuing, from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death takes place, but one who attains my abode, Krishna's abode, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, never takes birth again. So here it's referring to the many planets. See, these planets are something like, see, Indra is the king for the Swargalok, and Shiva for Shivalok, and Chandra for Chandralok. Like this, there are many loks or the high planets, many planets. They refer it to as planets. So there are many this one, but in every this there is a birth and death that takes place. As in this earth, there is a birth and death that happen in around say 100 years. Like this, there are multiple loks, Chandralok, Shivalok, Swargalok, wherein that again birth and death happens, but only the time duration is different. See, the same thing here. See, this is the Sanskrit shlok which is there, okay, and this is the transliteration in English, and this is the meaning for each of the words, and then here is the English translation of the Sanskrit. Then purport is the explanation. So if you see in the explanation, see here it mentions, as persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets such as Brahmalok, Chandralok, Indralok. So these are the various loks or the highest planets that is being mentioned here. So, as on earth, birth and death that takes place in a span of say 100, and on these places, where is Brahmalok, Chandralok, Indralok, etc., the time duration may be different. But again, as per this, the birth and death always takes place. That is the reason a person's desire should be to reach the highest perfection, which is attaining Vishnu Lok or the Brahman. Okay, and here it only talks about how many human days and what are the different periods. So let us skip this. Again, here the focus is the supreme personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed deviation. So that, sorry, unalloyed devotion. So devotion should be unshakable and constant. And it is continuing, like Krishna is continuing, oh best of Bharatas, which is referring to Arjuna, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. See, as we have established earlier, yogi means what? A person who is in the renounced order, who is detached from all the sensual feelings, who is practicing celibacy, okay, he puts himself in the yogic situation. So such a yogi, after passing away, after dying, what are the times when he passes away, whether he will come back or not? So Krishna will be explaining to Arjuna now. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain the Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, referring to sun, in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. So this is actually called a Shukla Paksh basically, where the sun is traveling towards north. Here one person, it is telling of he has to be yogi first of all, and then he has to quit his body under the influence of fiery god in the light. That means what? During the daytime. Also it refers to auspicious moment. Okay. And during the time when of 6 months when the sun is traveling the north. So if there is a yogi who is fulfilling all these qualities, only then he can expect to attain salvation. Okay. See here again it tells the mystic referring to the yogi who passes away from this world during the smoke the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet but comes back again. See, it is not talking about the normal individuals, it is telling mystic means yogi. Even the yogi who has actually practicing celibacy, followed detachment, given up everything, practicing meditation, constantly thinking about Vishnu and uttering the syllable Om. After all these things, if the person dies during the night or when the sun is traveling towards the south, he does not get salvation. He is not going to Vishnu Lok. Even all doing all those things, they will reach the moon planet but will come back again. Okay, this is just stressing the same point. So here it was very clear, like he is giving one main way, because this was chapter 8 wherein it completely talk about salvation, wherein it is telling a person desiring such perfection should do what? Practice celibacy, bachelorhood. He should refrain or detach himself from all sensual engagements and constantly meditate on Om syllable and think about Krishna. And he should give up his body only during the morning time or the 6 months when the sun is traveling the north direction. So think there are how many things which should fall in place so that one can attain salvation. Do you even think this is possible by any chance? Even if first of all giving up everything and going itself doesn't make sense, or how many have we seen who have done these things in our own family, our own friends, our own relatives? How many have done? None. Why? Because the very concept itself is like so unachievable that people can't even. And because here there is no guarantee, even if they do all these things, okay, I'm not I'm practicing celibacy, I'm not marrying, I am detached from all the sensual desires, okay, I also utter omkar, and I also constantly think about Vishnu. Think we are doing all these things, but how can dying be in our hands? We could die in the night, we could die in the 6 months when the sun is traveling in the south direction. Correct? So how is dying in our hands? So even after doing all these things, it's not guaranteed that yes, one person will attain salvation. Correct? So this is an impossible way wherein the salvation is being shown to us. Now let us see what Shiv Purana has to say. Okay, 570. Okay, I will just show you. See, this scripture again is actually authenticated from government of India, and this book, as it was also explained in my previous video, like these scriptures are actually found written in Sanskrit and in various temples across the India. And this particular governmental agency, Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, they actually get the first right to get through the scriptures and then translate them into our suitable languages. And basically these are the trustees or the treasurers you can call. And this is authenticated by government of India, because this agency hires scholars and they will translate these Sanskrit scriptures into some of the currently used languages. It could be English or very any other vernacular languages. Okay, and you can find these in Central Archaeological Library. See, okay, this is under this tradition. See, this is Shiva Purana volume 2. There are 4 volumes in Shiva Purana. We had already dealt some part of first and second in my previous video. In this, we are dealing with the second volume, one specific aspect in this. Okay, see, this was translated by a board of scholars, okay, and edited by Professor J.L. Shastri. So this is volume 2. These are the 18 Mahapuranas that are there. See, you can see Shiva Purana, Vayu, Garuda, and then you can see Vishnu, and there are 18 total Puranas. See, this book is authentic and attested by government of India itself, by Archaeological Survey of India, and you can find in any of the major libraries. For example, this was in Central Archaeological Library, New Delhi. Okay, so this talks about the genuinity of the version. Alright, so now let us go to page number 570 and see what Shiva has to say about salvation, how one can achieve salvation or moksha as per Shiva Purana. Alright, 570. Okay, 568. Okay, so here it starts. Shiva said, O Vishnu, O Brahma, O gods, all of you please hear with attention. I am going to say a specific thing in a suitable manner. Marrying is not a proper thing for men. What is this? Marrying is not a proper thing for men. Marriage is a great fetter that binds firmly. There are many base bondages in the world. What is base? Base is like very lowest standards, worst level, like that. There are many base bondages in the world. Association with women is the toughest of all. So, here, association with women in marriage is considered as the toughest of a base bondage. Interesting. One can free oneself from all bondages except that of women. Okay. Anyone bound with nooses of iron and timber can secure release, but one bound with nooses of women never frees oneself. Worldly enjoyment tightens the bondage. Salvation is inaccessible to a man drawn to worldly enjoyment even in his dream. So here what Shiva is telling is, and also he is telling to Vishnu and Brahma, and he is telling a very specific thing in a suitable manner, that marrying is not proper for men and marriage is a great fetter, and it's also comparing marriage to one of the base bondage, means one of the lowest kind of bondages wherein a man cannot escape, and hence any person even in his dream, if he wants to get engaged in this worldly enjoyment, salvation is inaccessible to a man. So now in Bhagavad Gita we just saw it was the same emphasis. Men should practice celibacy, go meditate. All right, even here it is the same thing. Men should not marry, and then they should not engage in worldly enjoyment. Why? Because the salvation or moksha is inaccessible to such person. So now just think for a minute. God created man and woman, right? And for the population to grow, man and women have to marry. That is when the procreation happens. So if any of our ancestors had taken these scriptures seriously, either Bhagavad Gita or Shiva Purana, neither of us would have been alive today, right? I mean, wouldn't have taken birth today, right? Because they would have thought, oh, we should not marry, we should practice celibacy. Okay, so the population would have stopped then only. So just think why God, who has made men and women and created this relationship of marriage wherein both can come together and procreate and the population can grow, on the other hand is telling, if you want to reach me, don't marry, practice celibacy. Do you think is it making any sense whatsoever? Or even if it is making sense, how many Hindus are following this? How many in our own family, friends, close relatives, close circles? How many? Not one, right? Why? So either these are not making any logic, Shiv Purana or Bhagavad Gita, or humans are not sensible. But if you think practically, humans are more sensible, or the current Hindus, what they are following, the marriages and everything, they are more sensible, because otherwise the population would never grow. Then that directly means these scriptures are not making any sense. So, if these are not making any sense, will the author of these, Bhagavad Gita by Vishnu and Shiv Purana by Shiva, do they make any sense? Please think over. So now, what are the learnings for today? That salvation or moksha is impossible to attain in Hinduism. It's just impossible because it's not in our hands. Even if we think, okay, practicing celibacy, going to a forest or meditating, putting ourselves in a yogic situation, like always chanting Om and then always thinking about Krishna, even if we think that is in our hands, dying is not in our hands. Okay, we may pass out in the night, we may pass out when the sun is traveling in the south direction, so everything gone for a toss, all the efforts that we put in secluding detachment, everything gone for a toss. And as per Shiv Purana, it clearly tells, if a person is married, then gone. no salvation even in his dreams. All right, so just think, so if at all there was a true god in Hinduism, okay, first thing is he did not prove himself whether Shiva is the main god or Vishnu is the main god. Whom should we believe? Because although the overview of these scriptures, the salvation is same, there are few things which are different. For example, Vishnu says always a person should think about Vishnu. That is when he goes to Vishnu lok. Any other lok, there is a cycle of birth and death, and person has to return back to earth. That is what it says. And Bhagavad Gita also specifically tells Shiva is one of the demigods. Please, if you have not seen the my previous video, like supreme god in Hinduism, please go there. There it is clearly shown how Shiva is a demigod as per Bhagavad Gita. So if a person, even if he is not marrying and then he is just meditating on Shiva, then if Vishnu is the true god, then they are not getting salvation. They will simply go to Shiva lok. As we saw in this, the different planets, they will just go to Shivalok. There also birth and death happens, and then they have to come back to this world. So they are not getting moksha if Vishnu is true. And if Shiva is true, and then it clearly mentions there, like again he has to, he should never marry. If he marries, then he is not getting salvation. So in either cases, any Hindu, in case he wants to attain moksha or salvation, he has to give up everything, all the desires, should not marry, practice bachelorhood or celibacy, and then meditate and see to it that they pass away during the morning time, or and the time when the sun is traveling towards the north. Thanks so much, friends. Hope you understood something. Kindly revert back in case you have any queries at my email address. Thanks for your time. And then just one small thing. Also consider why there is such a big emphasis. See, even if you are even buying one car, for example, which we might change multiple times in our lives, we actually compare each of the car manufacturers, like what a specific car's mileage is, what is the acceleration, engine capacity, everything. But when it is coming to God, wherein we are putting our entire life into his hands, not only this life but also the soul which will remain after death, when we are putting in his hands, don't we have to actually do some research to see which is the true god? Because our entire future in his hands. So not only our soul after we die, it's also the current life, because now everything is going fine, God's grace good. But when there is some issue happens, maybe accident, maybe disease, maybe a financial problem, only the true god can come into our life and help us. Certainly not the imaginative or the fictitious gods. Just because I consider probably this laptop is a god, I can consider, but then it doesn't help me when there is a when there is a requirement. Because my belief doesn't make it a god. What it is it, that's it. It doesn't change form or something, or get some superpower just because I'm thinking. Similarly, in this entire Hinduism, as we have seen, there is no one specific god or some force, divine force, which is proving itself, which is telling, okay, I am the true god, this is the achievable way how you can reach me. There is nothing. First of all, there is no conclusion whether Vishnu is the main god or Shiva or any other. Second, there is no practical way how we can attain them. Both ways are impractical, and of course they are same. We should give up everything and then devote ourselves and all. So that's an impractical way. So if there is a real god, okay, then why there is so much of confusion? Why there is no proper way? Why there is no achievable path to reach him, attain salvation? Okay, hope you all will think on this. Thanks so much for your time. Have a nice day. God bless.